I'm a lifelong vegetarian. I used to think veganism was just another trendy concept, like rich people boasting about plant-based diets for showing off. It felt distant. And then I met Anurag, a mountaineer I deeply admire, who introduced me to the essence of vegan living. His words carried weight because the way of life he leads, one of discipline, resilience, and his profound respect for nature. Curiosity led me down to walk on the paths I never expected. As I peeled the layers back, I uncovered unsettling truths about our world. The way animals are commodified, the industrial machinery behind dairy production, practices like breeding exotic dogs for vanity. The deeper I looked, the harder it became to ignore the pain and exploitation woven into the very fabric of these industries. The awakening wasn't just a shift in perspective, but it was a call to action. On this episode, I am joined by Shivam, an animal rights activist and the voice behind Voice of Vegans. Together we discuss these uncomfortable truths and to explore, if perhaps another way, a way that aligns with compassion and respect for all living beings.
So before jumping into the real discussion, I would like to narrate a particular story that my father narrated. During his college days, he used to do this daily travel from Anantapur to Guntakal. My grandfather is into railways, so he has got this luxury to hop into the engine room of the train and then travel along with the train drivers. So one day, he just hopped onto this train. It's a goods train, and the carrier cars they are carrying buffaloes. He spotted one buffalo that not got it went wrong, and then buffalo that knot is like fully tied to the buffalo, and then she is really suffering to breathe. And that then this kind of moan that is coming from the last stages of breath. He hopped on to the carrier car, somehow managed to unknot the buffalo, and when it is free from that tightness, that make the relaxation noise when the buffalo breathe inhale the air. He still remembers it, and then he came back after that. Once he's back, and then recently when he was narrating the story, after the story he said, like, what is the point? I saved it, but it is going to be butchered or slaughtered in a couple of days for beef.
Yeah.
So
How old is
I
the
just,
story?
it's way old, like 1979 or 80.
The reason I ask is if a similar situation is to happen today, the ending of that story will remain the same because that is still the case in India.
Yes, still the case. Yeah. But I just want to share the story. There is no reason, or I don't have anything to say after the story. But yeah, it's the buffalo story. So, hello, Shivam. You're well known for this movement, Voice of Vegans, and I'm really uh, inspired by your cause. And how did this journey of a vegan Shivam started? What was the inspiration? Were you a non-vegetarian before?
Yes. So, hi, Venky. First and foremost, thank you so much for inviting me and having this discussion. So, my name is Shivam. I am an animal rights activist. I create content with regard to the animals and try to create awareness so that people can reconnect with animals and ignite the compassion which I believe people already have and take actions accordingly. That action being becoming a vegan who's simply a person who doesn't consume any animal derived product. Talk about myself, I come from a hardcore non vegetarian family. In 2019, there were some instances in my life I got to know about animal cruelty. Like we already know because in India we already have slaughterhouses, but we are desensitized to it, like because it happens right in front of our eyes. But once you have discussions around them, that is when the sensitivity comes back. When people start asking you questions, when you yourself start asking the questions to yourself that what am I doing? Is this right that the animal is suffering because of my choices? And these are not need-based choices. I don't need to make these choices. I can live with an alternative choice as well. And that stayed with me. And in 2019, I became a vegetarian. So I was an ethical vegetarian, if you would like to call it that way. And then in a few months' time, I came across vegans and they questioned me about the dairy industry. And my idea was that in India, the dairy industry is not cruel like how it's in the West, because we have been brought up with that mentality coming from a Hindu household family that cows are like our mothers and we treat them well. For me, someone challenged me, and what I did was I just visited a dairy farm close to my place, and I realized that everything over there is cruelty. And ever since, I have been reading about dairy and visiting dairy farms. Of course, I became a vegan in towards probably the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. Around that time, I became a vegan, and I've been visiting dairy farms in the past 4 or 5 years. I visited more than 60 dairy farms, small scale, big scale, family owned dairy animals. I've visited all of them, and the story almost is same everywhere. Some variation depending on the size and the scale of the dairy farm, but more or less the story is same everywhere. And that's when I became a vegan, which aligns with my value of becoming an ethical vegetarian. That is, I do not want to be the reason why animals are devoid of basic rights. And being a vegan is essentially not using animals as products.
What was the transition like for you? Was it difficult to control those indulgences initially?
Yeah, I mean, this is a question which a lot of people get, given the fact that I come from a hardcore non-vegetarian family. That too from a city which is known for non-vegetarian cuisine, kebabs and biryani and all of that. And a lot of people think that, okay, how do you control it? And I keep saying this, I'll repeat that again, that it's not a question of control. When your world view changes completely, you don't see animals as products. In fact, I'll tell you a story. I decided that I'll become a vegetarian like beginning of 2019, somewhere near that time. But in my head, I thought, no, I have to go back to my hometown and eat my favorite food for one last time. It was like my one carnal desire that I have to do that. And you won't believe this, that I could not eat. I started like had I started having pukish feeling. So I could not eat because in my world, in my mind, the world view had completely shifted that animals are not here for consumption. So almost every vegan will tell you this, that it's not a question of control anymore. If it's a question of control, that means you are following a diet. You're on a plant-based diet that I have switched to a diet. But if you are an ethical vegan, which means that you're thinking from animals' perspective, then it's not a question of control. You know that what you are doing is wrong, and now you have shifted.
So, voice of vegans, just give quick insight about it.
Yeah. So when I became a vegan, I thought that now everyone will come, like how I came to know about this, about animals' perspective. Everyone will learn about it and they will become vegan. I started talking to people, and then I realized that no, it's not happening. And that's when I thought, okay, I have to do some awareness around it, and that's how I started blogging about my vegan journey. So, Voice of Vegans, that website started, and then I started making content. And then, as I started making content, I realized because of my corporate training, I have some skill sets which is to do with communication skills. I also liked using camera, clicking pictures, making videos. So I thought all of that will come together. And now, like I said, I'm an animal rights activist. So Voice of Vegans is essentially the platform through which I create awareness. I also recently quit my corporate job. So now I'm a full-time activist, which means that one, I'm creating content from my end where I document my journey of activism, where I talk to people. And I also go to colleges, do lectures with university students and school students. And in addition to that, I'm also working with a vegan NGO that is again doing the same thing, awareness. So I recently quit my corporate job. Now I'm a full-time activist doing this.
I'll tell you one story. This is also a vegan story. He's Anurag. Anurag is a vegan who climbed 2 mountains without oxygen. In 2022 April, Anu came to climb with Dhaulagiri at that time, but I couldn't go. So, but I went to meet him in Pokhara. He said, just one day before we depart, he called me in the night and asked for Venky, I am not feeling good. Something is wrong with my stomach. I am My cycle is running good, but my stomach is not good. I am not a doctor. I don't know anything. But what my understanding at that point of time, he didn't have any kind of buttermilk or probiotic stuff for last like nearly 2 years. And then I think that was my judgment at the time. So I said like, okay, I went on in Pokhara everywhere, most of the medical shops to find non-vegan probiotic stuff, but I couldn't. And I called a friend, Srinath, in Hyderabad. They said, like, this is the problem. This is an important climb for him. So he said some tablets, forget about vegan and all, but let him quickly get better. I found some probiotic tablets and get. So here the problem, most of the vegan people who argue about vegan, they say you don't have probiotic stuff. What are the possible replacement for yogurt or curd in this scenario?
When you talk about probiotics or prebiotics from curd, it's not a feature of the product, that is the raw milk, right? It is the fermentation process that makes it a good source of probiotic and prebiotic. So you can also get probiotic and prebiotic from, let's say, curd made out of soya or peanuts. So that is one thing. The only issue with it is that you will not get it in many cities because the production is not that much, the demand is not that much. And also, if you get it, it will be costlier because the economies of scale is against these products as of today. So another thing is you can make them at home. Nowadays, if you just do a quick search about how to make soya curd at home, you will get so many easy recipes. It's not that tough. So that is one thing. We sometimes make it at home. I don't make it, my partner makes it, and sometimes we do that. And generally, like in my lifestyle, I've never had any gut issues per se. In fact, I believe my digestion has improved after becoming vegan, that is coming into a plant-based diet. But also there are vegan options in terms of supplements as well, right? So there are many options. The only thing is, like you rightly said, these products are not always available. So sometimes these things need to be planned in advance. The point that I'm trying to drive is that there are solutions for all health related aspects, and those are not issues pertaining to plant-based diet. Those are issues pertaining to the availability of some products because the population at large doesn't care. Like if suppose it's not like that product is very difficult to make or very costly to make. The problem is that there's not much demand, and hence it is not available at every location. Suppose tomorrow we start getting demand for soya curd everywhere. So the product's prices will also come down because of economies of scale, and then it will be easily available. But that is, I do agree, especially in some athletic aspects, people have to plan it in advance so that you don't find yourself in such situations.
For example, the ethical vegetarianism. In my childhood, we are engaged with cultivation. So we had 4 buffaloes, two bulls for plowing, buffaloes for milk. The buffaloes get they graze from the fields, and their mating process is just natural. There is no force or there is no artificial insemination. When they get their cycle, they mate with an ox, and then they'll get pregnant, they'll give a baby, and then we'll get the milk. Even in the plantations also, if it's a big like if you have like 6, 7, 10 cattle, there is a portion of 1 acre plantation where we grow jowar. We can eat the raw jowar from the top, and then there is this sugar cane type of stem under just above the roots that is also consumable. It's very healthy. So in this scenario, there is no harm happened, or it's fully, they are well taken care. So in such situation, does vegans have a problem consuming dairy products?
So just to clarify, you had 6 animals, 4 buffaloes, 2 bulls, 4 females, 2 males, and you are saying that they used to mate naturally, and you are saying that there was a dedicated land where the food for them was grown, and which land was also used for human food consumption as well.
And this is a normal practice in our village even nowadays, but the amount of the scale reduced.
So I essentially got your point. Just to like once again summarize, you had 6 animals, 4 female, 2 male. They were mating naturally, and the food was also grown for them, and there was reserved land for them. Right? This is the case that you're talking about. Now, before I actually answer this question, if this is acceptable to a vegan or not, let's zoom out a little bit. As of today, let's say that this specific scenario where the cows and the buffalo, they are well taken care of, right? Let's call this scenario X, where they are well taken care of, and then there is the scenario Y where these animals are horrifically abused, right? So there's X, well taken care of, and Y, where they are horrifically abused. So then the question is, what percentage of the milk demand that is being fulfilled in the country is served by X and Y? That is the first question. Or before that, before you answer that question, I'll go one step back. Do you support the practice Y, where these animals are kept in a horrible condition and subjected to so much of violence, and then they are slaughtered, like how your father intervened in that truck? Do you support that?
I absolutely, like, 100% against. From the we were
Yeah.
brought up against that kind of practice.
Great. Yeah. So that is the first thing. So we are aligned on that, because a lot of people say, yeah, we are fine with that, and yet they will talk about the situation X. So that we are aligned. Now the question is, in today's day and age, what percentage of milk demand do you think is coming from abuse and not coming from abuse?
Negligible. Negligible from.
Negligible. Yeah, I tried doing some calculations based on animal husbandry report, like number of milk animals that are there in the country as per the 20th livestock consensus, and see with the population of India. I mean, the best guess would be still less than 0.0001% if we start getting into that calculation, because and we'll get into that why that number is almost negligible. Now, this is very important to address, and that's why I didn't answer the question first, because when a viewer watches such a podcast, in their head, the moment I say that vegans are against it or support it, irrespective of the answer, in people will think that, hey, my milk is also coming from that source. Everyone will think my milk is coming from that source, when in reality it is not. That is one thing which needs to be acknowledged by everyone, that stop living in this bubble that animals are well treated and then we are taking milk from them. There can be rarest of the rare case, and also we'll look into those cases, but that is not happening for the majority of the milk consumption that is happening in our country. And that is the reason why India happens to be one of the largest beef exporter, largest leather exporter countries in the world. And these animals are they have been turned into commodity. Like some people will say, no, but we are not killing them. You tell those people who are killing them, the dairy farmer, how will they take care of that animal who is not giving milk? He has to make profit, because you have created a demand. He's catering to that demand. He has to make profit, right? So if there is a male calf, or if the female who is very old, how will he take care of that animal who's not profitable to them? There is no other way. And that is why the first story that you narrated, that is true even today. The only respite there would be with the indigenous cows, because of the cow related politics in the country. Buffaloes for sure, because there is no restriction on culling of buffaloes. So buffaloes are always killed. And that is why people will never find a stray buffalo. People will only find stray cows, because if you kill the cow, then there can be some repercussions. So people leave them on the street. But buffaloes will barely find stray buffaloes, because they're always killed. So that is one aspect. Indigenous cows also, less than 20% of the dairy demand in India is met by indigenous cows. So 80% of the milk where it's coming from, that is from these animals who are killed. That is buffaloes and exotic breeds. They are also not counted as the indigenous cows for whom the protection is there. The name of the species, it's called Bos indicus. That's less than 20% milk coming from them. So if anyone watching this is, if you drank milk today, then there's a very good chance that it is coming from the same supply chain where the animals are going to be killed. And even let's say they are not killed, even then they are subjected to continuous cycles of pregnancy. In your case, you gave the example that they are mating naturally. Now, with dairy farmer who's thinking about profit, they won't wait for them to mate naturally, and that is a very costlier affair also for them, because they have to keep the bull. Nowadays, businesses are compartmentalized, so the dairy farmer will only focus about producing milk, and they know that they don't need to have so many bullocks. They can have like one bullock and one bull, and then it will work out. And even nowadays they do artificial insemination, where they go and buy the semen directly from the market, so that it is easier process. So these animals are subjected to continuous cycles of pregnancy, one after another, after another, after another. So do we support this, like forcing an animal one pregnancy after another, right from the age when they hit puberty, all the way up to the time when their body can't bear giving any more milk? They are subjected to continuous cycles of pregnancy. So that is also abuse only, right? Now it can be artificial insemination, it can be it can be pregnancy via another animal. But imagine if someone has a companion animal like dogs at their home or cats at their home, and that's a female dog, bitch. So in that case, even the owners take care of this, right? That I don't want my animal to go through so many cycles of pregnancy. The only case when the owner makes their companion animal goes through pregnancy is when they want to sell the babies and make money, right?
Yeah.
That is, the intent is to sell the babies and then make money. Otherwise, they will ensure that by whatever means, they will still ensure that they don't get pregnant, because so many pregnancy cycles is, if we genuinely take care of them, then we will prevent that, right? Or we'll leave them in the wild and then they'll take care of themselves, whatever they'll do. So abuse is there in the dairy industry for sure. Now, this was very important to highlight, is because when we talk about such cases where in someone will say that in my village we kept like this, the reason I don't answer that immediately is because I want to highlight the percentage, the gravity of the situation, that there is a very good chance that what you are saying in the what's happening in the village is just a story in your head. In reality, you are, at least in today's day and age, consuming milk which is coming from the same supply chain. So that's why I said that it's important to zoom out and address the bigger issue at hand. Now let's talk about this specific example, right? So you said you had 6 of them and they used to mate naturally. And this was how many years ago?
Early 90s.
Early 90s. Let's say 1991. Okay, 1991, you had 6 of them. And you have dedicated land to take care of them. Now tell me, if they were to become pregnant, let's say 2 of them become pregnant, 1992 the 6 will become 8. Right?
Yes.
The
yes.
8 next year, again, it can become 10, 12, so on and so forth, right? If you don't intervene with the pregnancies, even if they are mating naturally, then after a certain point, you will run out of resource. As simple as that.
Yes.
The only way to sustain is when you stop their pregnancy from yourself, like how you would do for your companion animals like dogs and cats. Because that is the only example where people have the interest of the animal at heart. That is why they prevent them from multiplying, right? But with these animals, even the best of the cases, if you are not controlling pregnancies, then their numbers will explode, even if you're allowing the mating to happen every year. Also, if, let's say, these animals who are mating and they are giving milk, how much milk do you think was available for human consumption from this?
1 or 2 liters per day maximum. 2 liters is also a big amount.
2 liters also big amount if you are saying that you are allowing the calf to drink the whole quota of the milk, right?
Yes.
So from four females, 2 liters.
From 4 million females, we get 8 liters in the morning, evening 8 liters. It will be 16 per day.
16 per day, but how much of that is going to be consumed by the calves? Four means four of them are giving milk, means that they are not 6 animals in your area. 4 baby to hoga at least 4 plus 4 8 plus 2 10.
Yeah, of course, yes.
And also note that all animals produce milk. Naturally, they would produce milk only to the extent which is needed by the baby.
Yeah.
These animals, they produce more milk because, like you also said earlier, we have genetically modified them over time, right? Even
Yeah.
now, that's what we are doing. We are coming up with so many methods. If you read the plan under um, Rashtriya Gokul plan, which has been and which is an initiative by the government to increase milk production in India, you see so many methods, and all of those methods are essentially trying to turn these animals into milking machines, which means that what can we feed them, what medicines do we give them, what can we do so that they produce more and more milk, and what else can we do. Now there's a method called sex sorting method which has come up, which essentially is trying to ensure that male calves are not born, more and more females are born, so the percentage of male. So if you see in humans, people didn't want females, and hence there
Yes.
were female feticide, because humans used to see female as a burden to the family, and hence they would want only male. In dairy animals, it is reversed. They see male as the burden, and hence they are focusing on getting more and more females, right? So all I'm saying is that even in your case, if you look into the nitty-gritties of it, it is not either it is not a sustainable model, that is one, or sustainable from business standpoint. Either it's not a sustainable model, or there is cruelty involved, right? Even consistent cycles of pregnancies, cruelty. Uh, you said you have a dedicated land, but if you ensure that, if you think that you will have limited resources, like in your case, you said like you had land for them, but then that land will also, like if the pregnancy keeps on happening, then they will also, yeah, they will multiply, and your resources will be limited only, right? And last thing, in India, I'm 100% sure that in the past we used to keep these animals as how we keep dogs today. I'm sure like the intent when it started would have been noble only, that okay, these are animals, and probably some animal gave more milk, and then someone thought, okay, uh, we can feed the milk to other animals. Then someone may have thought that okay, but we can also feed it to humans, so on and so forth. This would have continued, and that's when someone got the idea, ki, "Arey, let's make a business out of it." So this, what people are saying, ki, what if we treat them well? Understand this: the dairy industry, which is there today, it's there because that is what would have started in the past, right? So that is something people do not understand, and hence the fundamental concept of veganism is very important here, which I'll highlight, that the moment you start treating animals as products, you start using them, use will eventually lead to abuse only. There's no way around it. And that is why being a vegan is someone who doesn't see animals as products, as simple as that. If someone truly cares about cows and buffaloes, they should go to any random dairy farm, ask some of these questions which I'll ask, that how many animals do you have now, and how many animals did you have 5 years, 10 years back? The chances are the number of animals will be same, and all of them who are there in the dairy farm, they will be of uh, fertile age, giving milk. So then the question needs to be asked, where are, like, because the pregnancy is happening every year, where are the rest of the animals? They'll not be there. It is case in every dairy farm, large scale, small scale, any dairy farm you'll go to, the number of animals will be constant only. That is why I asked you. And in your case, like you are saying that it was in the 90s, so you may not have a very good memory of it. But sometimes I get into these discussions, talk to people. After 3 or 4 questions, it eventually comes down to this. Yeah, people will say, yeah, we sold them, we gave it to neighbors, we did all, which we know what is the reality of it is, right? Because essentially all of that is just marketing gimmick, that we treat them well. Eventually, the idea is to make money, and they are the tools who's producing the product for you to make money, and people just treat them as tools, just commodities. So that is the problem. So just to summarize the answer you asked, what if there is a small scale dairy farm? First and foremost, it is very important to underline that such dairy farms where the animals are not treated cruelly is barely existent today. That is the reality of it. And when I talk about cruelty, I'm talking about continuous cycles of pregnancy. I'm talking about separation of mother from the calf. I'm talking about the male calf being killed. I'm talking about the mother being killed after she's incapable of giving milk. One or four of these things would be happening in almost all the dairy farms. So those dairy farms where we have the vision that they are very well treated, they are barely existent. And if people are under this illusion, they should go to the dairy farm and check this. And let's say if you have managed to create such a dairy farm, then I mean 99% of the time you should be with vegans only, because 99% of the time the milk is coming from cruelty only. And then that 1% or less than 1% trying to justify that and saying that no, this is how we drink milk, that is not a very good argument. If you really think about the animals, then talk about what is existent today. And also note that if we use animals, then eventually it will lead to abuse. That is what has happened again and again and again. So we won't be able to cater the demand of this country using this model.
So the reason for asking this question is to find an exact definition for veganism.
By veganism, definition is that you don't see animals or anything that comes out of animal as products, because the moment you see them as product, the ethics goes out of the window, because you see them as a commodity. Commodity means you are the owner of a product, right? And you can compare this with slavery. There could be some, at the time of slavery, there could be some slave owners who would treat their slaves well. They are also like part of my family. I will treat them well. First and foremost, number of people who were doing that was very less. And secondly, fundamentally, you see the concept of slavery in itself is wrong. It is not a question about whether you'll treat your slaves well or not. Fundamentally, you don't want them to treat as slaves. That is the question. And same is for animals. That being a vegan essentially is to eradicate this form of animal slavery.
Okay, next, another question is about dogs. I'm not a dog. I don't hate dogs. There was an incident happened in Hyderabad. A 4-year-old kid was he was killed by a pack of dogs, a pack of street dogs. So I have put on Instagram that please speak about it. What is the possible solution for it? And then what messages I have received were very they are not acceptable messages. I am trying to find. I am trying to explore a kind of solution that who are the people who control these street dogs. Controlling this particular problem, and this particular problem needs to be addressed. So this is my question here, that this Blue Cross, PETA, Beta, Rata, Tata, all these guys they are just calm. And the erstwhile Home Minister, he also said that this is an incident happened, we will address it very soon, but nothing was taken care. So these kind of situations, what could be the possible solution to prevent these kind of incidents? Because for me, if you ask me, 4-year-old kid is more important.
Yeah. So first and foremost here, before we come to the solution, I think it's very important to develop critical thinking so that we are in the right space to develop solution. Otherwise, it becomes a very stupid kind of a discussion when such a case erupts, when it becomes a 4-year-old child versus a dog.
Yeah.
The mental capacity of a dog and the child is probably similar. Okay.
Similar.
There are so many instances where dogs are also beaten by humans. We keep getting these cases, and there are instances where people are attacked by community dogs. And the stupidest thing that can happen from this whole discussion, which keeps happening when we see when we see news on social media or mainstream media, is that it becomes a dogs versus child situation or dogs versus human situation. It's like very silly, right? So we have to first understand fundamentally what is the problem, and acknowledge that it is not a dogs versus children situation. Otherwise, people can keep citing cases. India, there are so many humans, there are so many dogs. Any city, any state you will go to, you will find one case where dogs have mauled the human, and vice versa. So what, you'll keep fighting? So you have to understand what is it that is at stake here, and think critically. So one, with dogs, we have to understand that we have brought them into our human society. ideally these animals, all of these animals who have become part of human society, be it dogs, hens, cats, all of them, they are not supposed to be in a civilized world. They are supposed to be in the wild, right? Like dogs were earlier wolf, and from there they came here. Now, if they have come, what are we supposed to do with them? That's a fundamental question that we are supposed to answer. And if anyone is having a problem answering this question, then also I'll put out another question, that there are so many children today in India who are below poverty line, who do not have parents, who are on the street, and sometimes they create problems on street, right? They will steal, they will, because they don't have any other options, and that is what they know. So what are we going to say, that hey, this child is stealing, we should shoot them? We is senseless point, right? We have to think of a solution, that
Yes.
why is that child there in the first place? What went wrong that we as a society failed to provide that education to the child? And of course, that child can do something wrong, and that is an individual case which needs to be taken into consideration. But at a broad level, the question still stands, right? That why did that child had to be in a situation where he had to steal, he or she had to steal, or commit any sort of nuisance or crime? And we have to apply the same logic with the dogs as well, that they have been brought into our society and they are left on street, and people on the other hand are buying fancy dogs and not adopting these dogs. So first and foremost, people who, in my opinion, the breeding of dogs should be completely stopped, because that is also a very harmful industry. The mother dog there, the mother bitch, she's also abused a lot. Again, same logic as we talked about the pregnancy of the dairy animals. They are also subjected to continuous cycles of pregnancy. So that is one conscious step that people who want to adopt dogs should think of. But then the fundamental problem here is that dogs, they are left on street and their population multiplies, and 80 around 80 to 90% of these dogs, they don't even survive, because there is only so much resources available on street, right? So not all of them survive there. So these cases have happened in different parts of the world as well, and there are successful cases how this has been sorted. And one, like, it has been done in the Scandinavian countries, where they catch the dog, they neuter them, and then they return them back to the society where they were. Neutering means that trying to control their population. Now it can get into a ethical discussion, that should we neuter them or not, because we are violating their body rights, so on and so forth. But in this scenario, I believe that the intent of the person matters. We are doing it for the good of these animals. These animals should not exist, and if they are existing, then we have a responsibility towards them to take care of them. And if there are certain cases, like for example, if there is a dog who's biting, then there could be a history of that dog. Maybe that dog was mauled, abused in his or her childhood, and that's why they see humans as enemies, right? And of course, we do not have the system to take care of such dogs. Like we can't counsel them, like how in humans we have therapies to counsel them, right? So these cases are individual cases which needs to be seen on individual basis. But to make like a judgment, now we have to kill all the dogs or we have to do something like that, that doesn't make sense. The responsible solution here is to spay and neuter them and try to control their population. That is the ultimate solution. And also, people should be conscious and adopt these dogs as much as possible. And eventually, like, their population should come down drastically, because they have come to us, they have become a part of our civilization, and we are responsible for them. So we have to take care of them. And like I said, in such situations, these arguments that dogs versus humans, this is like the most baseless form of argument.
So see, this is somebody see this kind of sensible solution. If it comes from a politician or from a PETA or animal welfare society, that should, nobody spoke about it. Everybody says that there is a big debate in TV9 saying that these the animal welfare, too many women came there, and then the victims were there, and then mother was crying, and then these guys were shouting that how many dogs were killing in the day and giving numbers and all that. See, that is the stupidest discussion which needs to be addressed, where there is a solution and the solution must be implemented. That's what I'm
Yeah,
trying to find an answer about it.
yeah. So first and foremost, like we should take a moment to acknowledge that child who suffered this. So I mean, very very sad, and I wish their family all the strength. This
Yeah.
happened to them, and it's very difficult that if something of that sort happens to you, then I mean, sometimes this we feel that we have been done wrong. But again, at a broad level, the solution is spay and neuter, that we are trying to control their population. Their population increases, they become hostile, they start fighting amongst themselves. And the solution, by the way, is also there from the government's perspective as well. It's called the uh, ABC, Animal Birth Control, which is provided by the Animal Welfare Board of India, right? And there are so many NGOs, like grassroots NGOs, who are trying to do this. I know one NGO based out of NCR, and they are doing this drive on a daily basis where they will ensure that these dogs are spay and neutered so that their population is controlled in certain localities. But yeah, that is something. Again, if the root cause of this is because we have neglected these animals and brought them into our society, we brought them for our own purpose. Like they were hunters, and we, like the hunter gatherer, at the time of hunter gatherer era, we got the wolf into our society because that they were helpful to us, and now we have just ignored them, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we have to create that scenario. And mind you, there are documented cases where this has proven to be a good solution in different countries. I think Sweden or Norway, one of these Scandinavian countries, have managed to have eradicated the stray dog problem. And there are some countries where they tried killing dogs, and that did not work out for a multiple of reasons, because you can't kill dogs. Or let's say if someone comes up with this great solution and now I have to kill all the dogs, first and foremost, you will not be able to capture all the dogs in a single day, right? So in one area, if you kill, let's say you capture and kill them, then the dogs from other areas, they start coming into that area, because every area is also a resource for them in terms of food, right? So it has not worked out. The only solution is spay and neutering these animals to control their population, and banning of this thing, fancy breed dogs, so that
Yes.
people are more aware of it and make conscious choice and take in community animals as companion animals.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it has to come from a place of logic and empathy, compassion. Otherwise, if there is no logic, see, if there is logic and there is empathy, people will think about the child victim also, and also the dog victim as well. In so many
Yeah.
situations, you see, like just now we had Diwali, right? And so many instances came up where people were tying dogs with firecrackers and leaving them. Right? So many cases are there. So it has to come from a place of empathy and logic. And if you
Yes.
think about that, then I mean, population control is a good solution for dogs as well. And if I go more philosophical into it, then it's also a question of population control in humans as well, that we are
Yes.
also exploding, right? So the number of cases, if you just think about it, right? People are raged at dogs in such situation that the dog has attacked me. The number of cases where humans have attacked humans
Yeah.
is, is, is significantly more than
More
the
than.
number of cases of dogs attacking humans, right?
Yes.
Do we say that, oh, now we have to eradicate all humans? That doesn't make sense, right? Same for dogs as well. I'm
Yeah.
sure that there will be notorious dogs and they have to be dealt in a certain way. But again, I think humans are more dangerous to humans than dogs are, or any
Yeah.
animals for that matter.
Yeah. And so there is this science channel called Veritasium. I follow science a
Mm,
lot. So
mhm,
that guy once explored about what happens if all the humans are just gone from Earth at once. So the research or whatever the study, the answer that he gave is, first 5 hours, within the first 5 hours, all the tunnels, underpasses, wherever the water can come, they will fill. After within 5 days, nuclear meltdown will happen, and then after 5 months, the domestic livestock will obviously suffer starvation, and then the wild animals. So the cycle starts reoccurring, and within 5 years, all the endangered species will come back, and then thousands and thousands of years pass by, and then human traces will evade. Planet actually evolution continues. So in this case, for example, everybody on Earth suddenly become vegan today. What could happen?
Yeah. So, I mean, the example that you gave, if humans go away, then there will be, like you said, there will be a lot of immediate impacts because we have built so many systems and processes which requires humans to govern, like nuclear meltdown, because there are so many probably nuclear plants which require people to monitor that. Right? Luckily, if everyone goes vegan, then we'll not have this problem that humans will still continue with their daily job, right? The people who are into their whatever job they are into, they'll continue with that. Suppose they are working at a nuclear power reactor, they'll continue with their job. So,
Yes.
so the problem that you are trying to highlight from the theory that you presented is mostly to do with because humans will also give up, relinquish control of all the processes. So that will not happen. Now, if it happens suddenly, then of course there will be some repercussions here and there. We'll have to think about it. Uh, One of them will be that there will be like so many animals who will be there, and they will see. As of today, we kill 80 billion land animals every day, and trillions of marine animals every day. Now, at this moment, right now, 80 billion land animals would exist. If everyone suddenly goes vegan, then one thing to note is that these animals will also die. To the For the most part, they will die. Like majority of them will die, which they would have died anyway
Yeah.
because of the animal agriculture. But the next generation will be at least safe because they will not come into existence. We breed these animals into existence. So that is one argument people give, that everyone goes vegan, then what will happen to these animals? So these animals will suffer the same fate as they were to suffer earlier. Maybe some of them will be saved because there are some farm sanctuaries here and there. That is there. Then there can be some very positive changes as well, because animal agriculture is also responsible for so many climate related issues, at least at a global stage. That is one thing. Animal agriculture also utilizes large portions of land for its sustenance, and large portion of other resources for its sustenance. So we will free that up as well. There is also food politics involved with animal agriculture, that it is very inefficient system. Animal agriculture, if you see, especially in the West, where we have the animal agriculture is happening at a larger scale, and also the data suggests so that it is a very inefficient system because of resource utilization. And if you think about it, there are so many. I think there was a paper written on this by University of Minnesota, if I'm not wrong. You can check that out. World Hunger and Veganism. That because of this inefficient system, there are people who are not getting enough food, and they are suffering from malnutrition and hunger, right? So once we will free up resources, we can have a food solution for them as well. That is one thing. There can be other challenges which will go against veganism as well, like depending on the geography. What about the geography where there is no access to plant-based? How will people go vegan there? Until and unless that supply chain is formed, that they are able to grow either food in their location, or the food is traveling from other place to their location. So there can be, like, of course, because right now so many people depend, more than 95, probably 99% people depend on animal agriculture in one way or the other. So we are switching immediately. So there will be repercussions for sure. Some pros, some against, depending on geography. Certain geographies it will be easier. Certain geographies it can be tough. There can be so many things. pros and cons, but I would, if you ask me, I would still prefer that, because in my opinion, that pros and cons, I think humans are smart enough to balance themselves out. Um, and let's say if we come to know that, okay, on 1st of December 2030, everyone is going vegan, then we'll also, like right now, I'm just giving points top of my head, but then we'll get to the vision board, think about all the problems and how we can solve them. I think we'll come up with a solution. But we will know for sure that once that switch is turned on and people go vegan, we'll know that so many animals will not suffer anymore. So I would prefer that if that happens.
Yeah, they will die natural death, which is which is good.
They will they will die natural death, or whichever death they die, even if we are forced to kill them because there are so many animals and whatever. I don't know what can be the
So
practical solution, but I'm still fine with it because they would have died anyway. We are
anyway,
not changing their fate in one way or the other, but we know for sure that there will be no next generation of these farmed animals.
if we are switching into plant-based diet, the genetically modified variety, most of them are genetically modified fruits, vegetables now
Hmm,
in the West,
hmm,
and it is also slowly coming into India as well.
hmm,
The hybrid varieties of tomatoes, everything is hybrid. So,
hmm.
does this kind of genetic mutation will give the proper nourishment?
So, first and foremost, before I answer that question, we also need to understand that the animals that we are also eating are also genetically modified only. A
Yeah,
chicken, poultry animal that most humans and most Indians eat, they are supposed to live up to the age of 6 years, 7, 8 years. They reach their weight at a certain age. But what are we doing? We are killing them at 6 weeks, mere babies, and we have modified them over time to ensure that they gain their weight that much in a span of just 6 weeks, right? So if we are against genetic modification, again, we should be against factory farming by default, as
yeah,
simple as that, right? And then if someone says, yeah, but then we can eat organic, like animals from organic farms, then that's not sustainable because there's no scalability in that. So that's there. And then if you ask me about genetic modifications, like I do not have a problem with it as long as I know that it's not causing nutritional deficiency. A lot of food that we eat, we have evolved over time, and we did not eat it in the past. But the health of humans have significantly improved over time only, right? Earlier, the longevity was lesser. Now, with time, with advent of science, it has improved. For example, what is like modification means what? Let's say fortified food, right? The milk that people drink, or any oats or cornflakes people drink. Now, fortified food means that they have added vitamins and different types of vitamins to make it more complete. So that is also not natural, right? So
yes,
essentially, when you say genetically modified, I'm gravitating towards natural because that is the thing that comes in the head of people. It's unnatural. What is natural today? You and me sitting talking from different cities using camera, using this website. Is this natural? We have evolved over time, right? So
yes,
if genetic modification, which falls under the umbrella of unnatural, and if that is leading to nutritionally adequate food, then there's nothing wrong with it. Like everything that we are eating today is something probably which did not exist 100, 200 years back. We have evolved over time, right?
yes,
Medicines, vaccines, these are not natural only, right? These are something which we have created for us, for our well-being, for our health, for our longevity, right? So there's nothing wrong with it as long as it's healthy. Which brings me to the question about plant-based diet. If someone switches to from a animal flesh diet to a plant-based diet, is it healthy or not? This is what people ask. And again, that depends on what you were eating earlier. Suppose
yeah,
if you were eating earlier the worst category food, fried food, and you can switch to a similar unhealthy food in plant-based diet as well. Like you were eating French fries and burgers, and you can still eat that with a lot of vegan cheese and whatever. It will still be unhealthy. The question is that is it possible to be healthy on a plant-based diet? The answer is clear-cut yes today. There are tons of research paper. And there are so many anecdotal evidences where we know people from different walks of life who have gone vegan. Elite athletes, mothers, babies, pregnant women, people from old age people. So, like people from different walks of life are leading a healthy life on a plant based diet. The only thing is it adequate? Like, are you planning your plant based diet adequately? Like, are you ensuring that you're getting all your nutrition? And that is true of any diet, right? Whether you are on plant based diet, whatever diet, if your diet is crap and you're not getting the nutrition, then your body will suffer. And the same is true of plant-based diet also. Someone can eat French fries and Oreos all day long and still be a vegan. And someone on the other hand can consume like healthy whole food plant-based legumes and stuff like that. That person is also vegan. The question is, are we aware of what we are eating, the nutrition side of things? So that is where my answer stays, that first and foremost, GMO, if people think it is unnatural, then again, what is natural in today's day and age? We should rather think if it is serving our nutritional requirement. There's nothing wrong with modified food per se, as long as it is healthy. So that is something we need to learn about, basic nutrition, and not be swayed by all the clickbait titles and articles. This is GMO, that is GRA. Understand the basic nutrition, what you're eating. Feed it into a simple app like Healthify Me, MyFitnessPal, Chronometer. See what protein, what carbs, what fat are you eating, how much of these macronutrient, micronutrient you're getting or not. So that is basic importance of nutrition. So again, that comes down to critical thinking, that people will not know about all of this, but will be swayed by all these clickbait titles. I'll give you one example. People keep telling me about B12. What about vegan? What about B12? So first and foremost, vegan and vegetarian both are same when it comes to B12 in India. That is one thing. Secondly, the amount of animal flesh that people consume in India, those who are also non-vegetarian, even they are not consuming that much that they'll get B12 from these animals. And that is why if you go to any diagnostic center, they will have B12 test as a fast turnaround test that they do it on a regular basis, B12 D3, right? They are not doing it only for the vegans. They know that B12 deficiency is a huge problem in India any which way. That has nothing to do with veganism. Secondly, just go and go to any store where they sell poultry food, the food for these animals, and you'll find that they also sell B12 supplements for these animals. Because these animals are kept in an unnatural, super unnatural diet. What B12 they'll give you? They are reaching their weight in a span of 10% of their life, their adult weight, less than that, right? 6 weeks, instead of living for 8 years, they are reaching that weight. So they are kept on unnatural diet anyway. So, and B12 for animal is a huge industry. So again, ultimately, it's not about where we are getting that food from, as long as we are getting it. You can, and B12 supplements are cheap. I recommend everyone to consume. And most doctors today, most nutritionists today do that. So yeah, I mean, that's just one example. I digressed a bit, but I was trying to make the point that forget about this natural and unnatural thing.
Now, the Southeast Asian countries, they are fully meat eaters. They eat half-cooked meat. I visited Vietnam. So there are these aquariums put for aquatic animals for sale. They say whatever that floats we eat. So, but still they are, they have chiseled bodies. They are strong and all that stuff. So, what kind of comment that vegans do for this kind of scenario?
Great. I'm so glad that you gave example of Vietnam, because I recently visited Vietnam and I was closely observing their eating habits. So I have some observations from there. And one thing is, you rightly said that they have very lean physique. Girls, boys, everyone, most of them have lean physique. Very few cases of obese people I found there. So that's one observation. And second observation is, which you again rightly said, that their food is mostly meat dependent. So then someone can make a correlation. See, because they are eating meat, that is why they are lean and fit. Even India, where people who are eating meat, do you see them as fit? Like if you see the general population. So what I figured is, one thing is their portion size wherever I was going, and even when I was consuming vegan food, portion size ka difference was remarkable. What I mean by that is, if you go in India and if you get a dal chawal, you will get so much of chawal and little bit of dal that also will have 80% water. So protein very less, carbohydrates very high. But over there, most of these places, people eating animal flesh, or even for that matter, tofu is very popular there, by the way. So every place you will get a lot of tofu. Even when we were ordering tofu rice, they were giving like 200, 250 grams of tofu in one meal, and the rice was relatively less. So that is one observation I had, that they have a, like, culturally, they have very good distribution of macros. In India, the macro distribution is very carb heavy. So
Yeah.
as a vegan also, I tell people that we have to rethink the way we consume dal rice. Like, I keep putting stories on Instagram as well, that I consume 100 gram of raw dal, which after cooking becomes 300 grams, and 20 to 30 gram of rice. So this much rice and this big ball of dal, and that is how we should be eating. And but unfortunately, we have done it in other way. Secondly, in Vietnam specifically, every city, every place I went to, they have vegan and vegetarian options, specific vegan options, and ethical vegetarian options. Why I say ethical is because I talk to these people. They have Buddhist culture there as well, and a lot of people believe in peace, and they are against violence towards animals. And hence, every place I went to in Vietnam, I went for a work visit. Every place I went to, they had vegan and vegetarian options. So my observation here is, one, their carbs and protein ratio is well balanced in general in their food. That is one thing. And they have vegans and vegetarians. I went there for a vegan seminar only. So there were vegans from different parts of Southeast Asia. I met vegans from China. Met vegans from these countries. So yeah, they are vegans there, but of course, traditionally they consume more animal flesh per capita as compared to India. So in my personal opinion, it is easier for a country like Bharat to become vegan, because India is very sensitive towards animals in general, and that is the reason why I feel that a lot of people are ethical vegetarian in India. Like the Jain people, if you see, they are also one of the fastest growing vegan communities. Again, I do not have data, but based on my observations, I'm saying this, that I have seen a lot of people turning vegan from the Jain community because they are pro animal by default. So Bharat is an easier country to turn vegan than some of these Southeast Asian countries. But why they are fit, I don't think that that has to do anything with regard to because they consume flesh, animal flesh, because there are so many cities and places where people consume predominantly plant-based. Like there are some cities in Japan where people consume mostly plant-based, and they are also healthy. And that's one of the blue zones where people have lived for
Mm.
the longest years. So again, it goes back to the fundamentals of nutrition. Like I
Yeah.
never say you become vegan because animal-based food is unhealthy. If you do it right, you will get your nutrition from animal-based food as well. And traditionally, that is what people have been doing as well. But you can get it from plant-based sources as well. And probably you can get it from human-based sources as well. But we don't eat human flesh, right? Because even if it is healthy, because we would consider it as unethical, right? So yeah, I mean, we can be healthy on any, that's what I believe, that if someone is smart about their nutrition, you can be healthy on any type of diet.
But I'll tell you one documentary about vegan, how athletes shifted to vegan, and
Yeah.
then how the performance improved. This film is called Game Changes. By any chance, do you
Yeah.
know about it?
So I'm aware of it. I also know the director, the maker of that movie, and James, and he has been on the Joe Rogan podcast as well, where he debated his position on the movie because someone called him out. So as someone who thoroughly believes in science and evidence, I do not cite game changers as an evidence, but there are evidences cited in the movie. People can go and refer to them,
Yeah.
and that is, of course, one movie which has helped athletes to overcome this mental barrier that it can't be done that you can't achieve your peak performance on a plant-based diet, but we can. The reason I do not talk about that movie per se, because I mean, there are athletes who are completely on carnivore diet as well and are also very healthy, right? I
Yeah.
can't, at least they look healthy, they perform their health. So there are probably evidences on both sides. So I do not present this as an argument that you go into plant-based diet, you will become an athlete from a movie like Game Changers, right? I never promote that. All I'm saying is that whatever your health and fitness goals are, that can be achieved on a plant-based diet. Yeah, so the message is that way clear from my end. But of course, that is a great movie for anyone who has some levels of apprehension that whether they will achieve their peak performance. They should see that movie, and they should also look for athletes on social media from different sports who are plant-based. So many people who won medals in the Olympics, they are bodybuilders, and so many athletes from different sports. Now one can argue again here. Hey Shivam, let's take any sport. Let's talk about bodybuilding. Now if I go to 1,000 bodybuilders, 990, I'm just giving an arbitrary number, but people can say 990 of them are on a animal-based diet and 10 of them are on a plant-based diet. So you see this animal-based is more potent. But then understand the ratio of proportion of vegans in general is also low, right? So the representation will also be low. So yeah, I mean, again, critical thinking is important. We should be mindful of how we are reading data.
Random question that people ask, if as a vegetarian also they used to ask me. So if I suddenly turn into a vegetarian, what happens to my my health?
Yeah, so I mean, again, you will face health problem if you eat inadequately. Like, suppose you were eating something healthier and then suddenly you switch to just Oreos and French fries, which are vegan. Then of course, you will face health problems. The question is again, fundamentally, are you getting your nutrition right or wrong? That is the thing. And also, there's a good chance that fundamentally your nutrition was wrong even before becoming a vegan. And that is where tracking your macro micronutrient and just learning a bit about it, it's not that tough nowadays. On internet you will get all the information. If you feel that it is too much for you, then get in touch with a vegan who comes from a similar background as you do. Let's say you are a cyclist, then I'm sure that you can find a vegan cyclist and just try to mimic their whole thing. So again, will there be health repercussions if someone becomes a vegan? The answer is yes or no, depending on what you are eating after becoming a vegan. As simple as that.
Yes.
So, I'm not here to. I'm not like a vegan salesperson. Ki anything I'll say, ki, Hana, you become vegan, you become very healthy. It's a fact, right? If you eat healthy, you will remain healthy. All I'm saying is that, can you be healthy on a plant-based diet, a well-balanced plant-based diet? The answer to that question is 100% yes. But if someone chooses not to consume healthy plant-based diet, then they will not be healthy.
Then there is another question normally people ask when the non-vegetarian vegetarian questions. They say no, plants have sentiments and they are sentient and they are living things. How can a vegetarian or a vegan have problem with eating animals when the plants also have feelings?
See, most of the time people ask this question not because they care about plants or animals. They want to feel good about themselves. That if
Yeah.
Venky is choosing not to consume animal flesh because it's an ethical choice, then in their head they realize, okay, that is like I'm becoming ethically inferior to this person. So how do I justify my position? And hence they will come up with these arguments that plants also feel pain. I mean, first and foremost, as of today, I have never not seen a single piece of scientific evidence which claims that plants are sentient beings. They have life, of course. They are complex beings, 100% yes. They are amazing complex beings capable of performing so many things, but that doesn't make them sentient. Sentient is essentially subjective awareness that a being knows that they exist vis-a-vis the world, and hence the capacity to feel pain and suffering. Plants do not have any mechanism which talks about pain and the concept of pain and suffering. They do not have any form of nervous system which tells us that they are sentient beings. So if someone is like having a serious discussion, so one of them is like if people are having this discussion just for fun, then like then I don't get into discussion with them much. But yeah, unless it's a debate and it's being recorded, then I get into the evidence side of things. But otherwise, you can tell most of the time people are just trying to come up with a justification to fulfill their ego, that okay, I don't want to see myself as someone ethically inferior, and that is why they come up with. But if someone is genuinely interested, then it's a very normal thing to ask them that have you seen any evidence? You may have seen an article for sure that plants also scream at this frequency, all of that frequency. That is an article which is sensationalized like a thumbnail and a title for you to click on it. But have you gone to the link to the research paper that that article was citing, and then have you read that research paper and understood and then seen if that research paper is acceptable in the scientific community? So there is not a single peer-reviewed research paper which till date, at least I have seen, which claims that plants are sentient beings, right? So that is, there's a fundamental difference between plants and animals. That is one thing. Second thing is, let's say someone still in their heart of hearts says that no, Shivam, I don't care about research. Research keeps evolving. I know that plants are feeling pain. You don't tell me anything. ठीक है, चलो, I'll take your word for it that plants are feeling pain. And what are these animals eating? What are these animals eating? What is a hen eating? What is a cow eating? They are reaching a certain age, certain weight, and then they are slaughtered, and then they are converted into 1 or 2 meals for 2 persons. Okay, I'm talking about hens. Imagine what are they eating for their whole life of 6 to 8 weeks. They were on a predominantly plant-based food only, right? And globally on this, the data is very clear that majority of the agricultural land globally is utilized for food for these animals, not for humans. The majority of the cropland globally is utilized for food for these animals. And that's why I said earlier, it's a very inherently very inefficient system, animal agriculture, because these animals, they are eating 80 billion land animals, so many, like 1.8 billion human population, around 80 billion land animals. So 80 billion land animals also has to eat something, right? So that is also predominantly plant-based, and that is also grown somewhere, right? And that is the reason why it's happening. So ideally, this should not come to this state because, like I said, scientifically, there is no evidence, a good evidence, which claims that plants are sentient beings.
Sorry.
But if someone still believes in their heart of heart, then they should also then study the whole supply chain and how energy loss is there at every trophic level. Like animal, like who eat one animal and then the other animal who eats that animal. So every level there is loss of energy, right? Because energy is utilized by an animal for all their functions of life, be it walking, be it thinking, be it taking a leak or whatever. Energy is expended, and that energy is coming from food source, right? Predominantly food source. But when the animal higher up on the food chain is consuming that animal, then they are only getting 1 or 2 meals out of it, right? The rest of the energy is lost. So it's always close. Like the closer you are to, in general, again, there can be cases here and there, but in general, closer you are to the main food source, more efficient it will be. So if someone is being really serious about it, that plants are also feeling pain, then they should, first and foremost, that's not a serious position to hold. Please do some research. But in case if someone is like really holding that position, they should then learn about the supply chain of animal agriculture as well.
Yeah, what are some of some books that you suggest if somebody wants to convert vegan?
So one book, it can be a bit heavy book, but it's called The Abolitionist Approach by Professor Gary Francione, which talks about the philosophy angle of animal rights. There's another book, again on the philosophy side, by Tom Regan. It's called Animal Rights, Human Wrongs. And if one wants to learn about the animal agriculture industry in general, then there is a book by Earthling Ed. This is Vegan Propaganda. So then you'll come to know more about it. So yeah, there are many books, and there are documentaries as well, which I listed down if you want to understand. In India, for example, hens and goats, we have open slaughterhouses. But still, if you want to learn about their pain and suffering, there are two documentaries, Dominion and Earthlings. And if someone wants to learn about the dairy industry specific to India, then there are three documentaries I can refer to. One of them is The Land of Ahimsa. Second is The Unholy Cattle of India. And third is The Maka Doodh. Available on YouTube, free of cost, you can watch to learn about the dairy practices. And I mean, people can watch these documentaries and read these books, but ultimately, to become a vegan, I always say this four words: think from victim's perspective. Replace yourself with the animal, and then just answer if being vegan is the right position or not. That's the only thing.
So that's the message you want to give to the world through any podcast that you do.
Yes, think from the victim's perspective. The combination, if someone is logical and compassionate, then veganism becomes the inevitable choice.
Thanks a
Thank
lot
you.
for this like enlightening discussion, and you're an incredible person for sure. And I personally support Voice of Vegans. I'm really inspired. This is not, I'm not telling for the sake of the podcast. I'm telling from my heart. And
Thank you.
I think the community will grow, and this mass murdering will slowly, the numbers will come down. That's what I look for. That's what I seek for, because I am
That is the idea. That is the
a
idea that
vegan.
I sorry.
I'm a buttermilk vegan, but I'll try to slowly convert into vegan. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so it's not a big deal if because from what I can gauge is that you're already connected to animals. The stories that you narrated with so much of emotions that your father told you. So you know that consuming buttermilk is also leading to that. The only thing that now you need to find out is, and trust me, I love buttermilk as well. I used to consume buttermilk on a daily basis. And you said you are in Gujarat, right? So I was also in Gujarat for some time, and over there it's like almost there in every meal. So I used to consume that. The only thing is that you need to learn on how do you get your buttermilk on a plant-based diet. That's it. You'll get so many YouTube videos on how to make it at home, or if you want to buy it from outside, or if you want to give up buttermilk and then rely on some other probiotic sources, that can also be done. I'll give you one example. Again, it was not something I missed, but I used to drink a lot of coffee. Now, I tried oat milk, I tried almond milk. First and foremost, they are very costly. Then I tried making them at home. So it is possible to make them at home, but I was lazy to not to do it on a daily basis. Sometimes my partner does it, and then I take advantage of that. But otherwise, it's difficult for me to have that patience. So then I switch to black coffee, and now like I can't even imagine why I used to drink milk coffee because I'm so used to drinking black coffee. So you will find a solution. Either that solution will come at a cost. You'll have to spend some money. Can you cut down money from other aspects of your life and buy it? That is one way to do it. Other way is to learn and how to make it at home. That is the second way. And the last way is because you have to see what you are getting something from that food source nutritionally. Like try to swap the nutrition. That there is like with food, there is the desire aspect, there is the need aspect, right? Desire is like something tasty. I have to drink this because I'm addicted to the taste. Need is if I get calcium from milk, and now where do I get calcium from? So I don't need milk to get my calcium. I can get calcium from other plant-based sources as well. I'll manage that, right? So I mean, there are options, and as long as we think from our perspective, how to go vegan will always become tough. And that is why the focus should always be on why to go vegan. And that is thinking from the victim's perspective. Once the why is clear, how you will figure out. You will figure out, you will find people who have already figured it out. Based on your constraints, your requirement, you will find a solution for sure.
Yeah. So I am really inspired. And of course, Anurag is a vegan by himself. He's like the
Hmm.
most person who now I think he will become a yogi. He is not even wearing chappals now.
Okay.
He is doing his yoga, and then he wants
Mm,
to do something for his children,
mm,
for not his children, for the children who are on the roads. He wants to. He is trying to do something good for the society, and he also is facing a
mm,
lot of opposing. There is a lot of opposing force for that kind of noble cause. He wants to
mm.
you know take it forward. But yeah, so it's an enlightening discussion, and then you're an incredible person, and it's an honor for me to
Thank you
host
so
you.
much for
And
Thank you
yeah,
so much for doing this session. I do these sessions so that I can reach out to newer audience and to talk to people like yourself and try to plant the seed of compassion. In your case, I believe that the seed is already there. You just need to take action. But I hope that your viewers do more research on this. And one last thought I'll leave the viewers with, that there are 40, 50, 60 arguments that are against veganism. Against veganism. Like some of them we discussed, plants feel pain, so on and so forth, right? Please note that there is a very good counter argument for all of them. So after this, watching this, if you if you come to think of an argument, hey, but what about this? Yeah, now that is the reason why I will not be a vegan. Then please don't stop at that argument. Try to find a counter argument. You will come to know of the reality. So that's because sometimes people think that okay, maybe they didn't do research, they don't know about this. Trust me, I've done so much of research on this subject, and that is what I do on my channel, Voice of Vegans, on YouTube and Instagram. Talk to people and all these research so that people are aware that there is nothing which is being taken away from you if you choose to be compassionate towards animals.
so the final round of applause, and thank you, people of India. Please support Voice of Vegans, and thank you.
Thank you.